Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Climb, the Confident Leader podcast. I'm your host, Rahul Karan Sharma, where we bring stories of leaders moving from invisible to becoming an influencer. And guess what? In today's episode, listen to the end because we have a surprise gift for all our listeners from our guest today. Now, our guest is a very seasoned business strategist, speaker, and the author of 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership, a roadmap to success. With over 30 years of experience transforming teams and driving business growth, our guest is here to share his philosophy that leaders aren't born, they are developed. I know there have been a lot of case studies, a lot of articles on this particular topic, but we will listen from our guest today his thoughts. His unique ability to blend humor, charisma, and real world leadership insights ensures an engaging and a transformative experience for his audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hand together for one and only Jim Carlough to our show. Welcome to our show, Jim. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, and I'm excited to be here and to talk to you and your audience.
Absolutely. We are excited too. Before we talk about your book, can you share an insight to your leadership journey with our audience?
Absolutely. When I graduated college in 1983, my first opportunity for management was I was a sales manager. And I look back at that time and I see how I have dramatically evolved and changed
Mhm.
as I've learned to lead and honed that. And I actually have been very blessed to have worked with some very special leaders that really instilled some of my principles along the way.
Mhm.
Now, don't get me wrong, I've had the occasional leader from hell
Mhm.
who wasn't very good,
Mhm.
but those relationships didn't last very long. So
Mhm.
but I've always worked in healthcare. I started initially working for the health insurance companies and building out health plans. And then in the late 90s, I migrated to the technology side of healthcare. And I spent nearly a decade working at Perot Systems with Mr. Ross Perot himself.
Mhm.
And I cannot think of a leader that has had a greater impression on me than the way he managed and the way he took care of his employees.
Wow. Wow. So kudos to him for giving the opportunity to you and giving the experience because of which now you are passing on the legacy, passing on the learnings to the entire world. Thank you, Jim, for making that happen. Now, you in your book as well as your philosophy is all about leaders aren't born, they are made. And I know when I was growing up, this was one of the very common topic for debates. Um, I would love to hear your inputs on what are the most powerful leadership skill you have seen grow through deliberate practice. Share your insight on those skills that you think can be developed.
So let me start with why I believe leaders are developed and
Mhm.
they're not born that way. If I look at my genetics, my dad was a carpenter. His dad was a mason. My great grandfather was a chicken farmer. There's not CEO or vice president in any of those occupations.
Mm.
And so I look at myself as the perfect example of a leader that was developed over a period of time.
Mhm.
And now I know, and as you even mentioned in your opening, there have been scientific studies about a genetic connection and a gene that many successful leaders happen to have. I don't know if I have it or not. I don't believe that I have it. Very much believe that the leaders that I worked with help mold me into how I lead today versus how I led when I first graduated college.
Mm.
I think one of the biggest lessons that I actually learned the same year I graduated college,
Mhm.
and it's about integrity. So the year I graduated college, I ran for a local political position in the town I grew up in,
Mhm.
and I won at the age of 22. And shortly after the election, the city administrator asked to talk to me. And we sat down to talk, and he eventually said, he said, "I want to ask you for a favor." So I know you're in Washington, D.C., and when you hear of favors from somebody who's in politics, it's not usually a good thing. But
Mhm,
he was about to give me a life lesson that I still follow today.
mhm,
And he said to me, he said, "Jim, every night when you go to bed and before you close your eyes, I want you to ask yourself this one question. And that question is, did I do anything today for my own self benefit that was at the expense of another individual, group of individuals, or organization?"
mm,
And he said, if you say yes to that question, you need to immediately do two things. Number one, figure out how to unwind what you did.
mhm,
And number two, figure out how you're never going to do it again.
mhm,
And that hit me like a brick upside the head because it was so empowering that to me, integrity is non negotiable.
mhm,
If you don't operate with integrity and transparency, your team is not going to believe in you. Your team is not going to follow you. And anything else you try to do will not be perceived as real, including showing empathy and compassion.
mm.
And so any team that I've led from that point forward always operated with integrity. Now, I'm sure a listener or two are out there and saying, well, wait, was there ever a time when? And there were times when I was challenged on that, but I stayed true to the integrity of me and not giving in to what I thought was something wrong to do on behalf of a customer or someone. And I have stayed on that line down the road without ever wavering across it. And every night since 1983, I still ask myself that question. And
Mm.
I've never answered that question with a yes.
Wow, what a story! And I do firmly believe that integrity, transparency are very, very critical, and they are non-negotiables. During my corporate career, Jim, one of the philosophy that we used to follow as a corporate leader is any decision that you are taking, that decision has to follow these some checklist. Number one is that decision is in the best interest of my organization. Number two, your decision has to be in best interest of your people, your team. And if anything else is left, then the decision has to be in best interest of your own self. Because when we decide to be a leader, we decide that we have to sacrifice. That sacrifice is inbuilt, whether we decide or not, it is inbuilt because leadership is for people. So those are some of the non-negotiables for us as well, for me personally, and I really appreciate you sharing that aspect. And integrity is, for some, they're using it very loosely, and they really need to make sure that they are doing the for the best interest of their organization, of the people. And I really like that question that you just put it together. Is, have I done anything today which has benefited me at the expense of others? Beautifully said. So thank you. That was the golden nugget that was dropped by Jim right in first 10 minutes. So thank you.
And I will tell you, I'm not trying to make this a political discussion, but our world needs more integrity today more than ever in our history.
Absolutely.
It's not just a United States thing, it's a world thing.
Mm,
And I as I talk at colleges and other places and conferences, I make it very, very clear that we all need to get on the train, the integrity train,
mm.
because the world is not going to change if we don't help change it.
Sure, sure. Very good. Now, Jim, let's talk about your book. So now your book is on Amazon and getting good sales as well. People are seeing the impact of the stuff that you have mentioned in your book, the processes and the ideas you have shared. Share with us what truly inspired you to write this book, Six Pillars of Effective Leadership.
So for the last 25 years, or maybe a little bit more than that, I started on the side to mentor people for free.
Mm,
And because I felt that people helped me on my journey, I could help people. And as I look towards retirement, I said, I need to find a way to give back what I have learned to continue to help people, but in a bigger scale. So I sat down and I listed all the people that I've mentored, and I started to list all of the characteristics that they struggled with in leadership or management. And there was commonality in a lot of them. And I had a list of what I began as 18 characteristics that I thought made a great leader. And then I thought, I can't write a book and ask people to implement 18 things. So I started to narrow down that list to what I thought was the most impactful in my career. And landed on six. I tried to get to five, seven was too many. And I really honed in on the six.
Mm,
And if people can, and the book is structured so that you, I talk about a pillar. I'll tell a story of how I was influenced by that pillar or how I use that pillar. And then I also give examples of how they can implement it. And I go one step further. I reference other leaders around the world who use that pillar in their own management style. So, for example, for integrity, I reference Satya Nadella of Microsoft.
Microsoft.
When he started at Microsoft in 2014, he made it very, very clear that they were going to operate with absolute integrity. And he is held true to that statement, and
Mm,
it has dramatically changed Microsoft for the better.
sure.
And so I don't consider myself an expert, but because the book references other people, the readers have the ability to go research how these other leaders have used that same pillar.
Wow. So you already leaked one of the pillar, which is integrity. I'm more curious to know what are the rest five pillars are. So if you don't mind, share with us what are those five pillars. And I'm also interested to know from your experience, out of these six pillars that you have mentioned in your book, which are the pillars that most leaders struggle with, or they overlook because from their perspective it is not important. So first, share with us the remaining five pillars, and then which are the ones, which of these pillars are often overlooked by people.
I think the next four pillars
Hmm.
are the ones that people struggle with the most because they're hard. And
Mm,
and it's not like you can pick up a book and learn them. And so the first two are compassion and empathy. A lot of people confuse the two, but they are different.
mm,
Compassion is when you can help someone or give someone guidance and help them through a situation, which, let's say an employee comes to work today and their spouse is ill and they're very worried about their spouse. I can be compassionate as a leader and tell when that employee is not on top of their game, ask them if everything's okay, and give them the time to go care for their spouse because that's where their head is at. And I can build more loyalty by just giving someone a few hours to go spend with someone to help them out. And it is easy to do, but a lot of people struggle with showing compassion. Some leaders feel showing compassion shows a weakness. I disagree with that. I think showing compassion is a strength.
mhm,
And then there's empathy.
mm,
And empathy is really being able to put yourself in that person's shoes and understand. And I'll tell you a story
mhm,
of a time when I was faced with a decision, or there was a decision made that I had to implement. I ran multiple departments at a company, and one department was and you'll remember these old green screen technologies
mhm,
before Windows and everything else. And we made claim systems for health insurance companies. And I had a team of 25 people that were a combination of engineers, customer service people, account manager people. And we had 36 customers on this claim platform. And we were going to sunset it. And we were going to have those 36 customers convert to the Windows technology. I had a job to ensure I serviced every one of those customers until the last one was gone. But I couldn't afford for people to be running out the door when when they were told would be told that we're sunsetting the product. And I did not know how to present it to them. And I wrestled for a week talking to my mentors who basically said, good luck. I've never had to do that. Let me know how it works out for you. And then I thought to myself, what would I want my boss to come and tell me if my job was going away? So my only goal was that I needed to keep people around to support the existing customers until they were all gone. So I met with the team and I made them 3 promises. The first thing I said to them is the average implementation time of the new platform would be 8 to 12 months. So you would know 8 to 12 months in advance of when your job would go away. And so that can put the person in a perspective. Well, I don't need to look today. I've got 8 months.
Mhm.
I can take my time. The second promise I made was if you wanted to learn the new technologies, I would make available training during the workday so that when it was time for you to come off of this product, we could move you into a support role with the new product. Second promise. Third promise, if you don't want to stay with the company and you want to find a job on the outside, I will personally help you find a job that fits your skill set that also meets the financial needs of your family.
Mm,
3 promises. No one left before it was time for them to leave.
mm,
I accomplished my goal. However, something else happened.
mhm,
About 2 years into this process, because it was gonna be a 3 to 4 year time frame, I got a call from HR, and they asked if they could come meet with me. Now, I always get nervous when HR wants to come and meet with you.
mhm,
But when they walked in, they didn't have an empty box, and my boss wasn't with them, so I knew it probably wasn't gonna be I was getting fired. And they sat down and they said, we're here because we wanna talk to you about one of your teams." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "Do you know, we did a employee survey 2 months ago, and we're really wrestling with the results of your team in California, the team that you're downsizing, the team that you're eliminating jobs." And I said, "Yes. How bad is it?" And
mhm,
they said, "Well, that's the problem. We have 20,000 employees in this company, and that group in California are the happiest,
mm,
and we don't know why." And they said, "What are you doing?" And
mhm,
I explained to them 3 commitments I made to them, and we talked through it. And in reality, I took the worry away and put it on my shoulders.
mm,
And I basically said, I have your back. I will help you get another job. I will be with you through this. And in essence, they didn't have to go home and tell their wife they were losing a job and update their resume and start looking right away. And never expected that to happen.
mhm, mhm,
Never. HR was so fascinated and impressed, they started to make it a policy of when people are getting downsized to make those same promises to employees to help them through that.
wow. What an inspiring story, Jim, because in my experience, I have seen that whenever teams are to be downsized, most of the leaders talk about why are we doing it, and they do not go all in to support the person who's been asked to leave or who's been asked to go. And what you did, you really demonstrated that if you keep your focus, if you keep your interest on the people rather than on you, magic happens. So all your 3 promises is for your people. And that's the job of a leader. It is for them. And very very impressive, and I'm not surprised to hear that they were the happiest team across 20,000 people, because you so the happy word is very subjective. uh, it is a state of mind,
Mhm.
and you are happy not because of a particular situation. It's because of the overall surroundings, overall environment. Because if you are just happy based on the news, then it is very short lived. Happiness needs to become part of your life.
Correct.
Happiness needs to be your mindset. And what you gave to them was a hope. You gave them the confidence. And you also gave them that I have your back. I am with you. That the support, that unconditional love, unconditional support. And that is what is missing in the leadership today. In today's leadership, it's all about the numbers, numbers. We are all going crazy about numbers, about the data. Data analytics is becoming the king. I understand data is the king, but data is not the whole thing. We are working with humans. We are working with people. So I'm glad to hear your story on the empathy. So you shared integrity, compassion, and empathy. Still curious. That's three pillars, my friend.
So the next two are stability and focus. And
Mm-hmm.
let me explain the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Stability is always behaving and performing the same way, regardless of who you're dealing with within the organization. Whether somebody's a high performer or a low performer, people have to see you as an even, that you always do consistent things. And I, I, I had an opportunity once. I was sitting in my office and I heard two people who worked for me having a disagreement in the hallway,
Mm-hmm.
and it started to get escalated. So I went out and I asked them what the problem was, and they were trying to solve a problem for a customer, but they were disagreeing about how to solve it. And they had two totally different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat them down in my office and I asked what the problem was. Then I went and listened to both of their solutions. And I sat back and I realized that they were so emotionally wrapped around the axle on their own ego and their own solution. They didn't think in totality of the customer. And I offered, if you put the two solutions together, you actually have a much better solution for your customer. But their egos prevented them from seeing the forest through the trees. And
Mm-hmm.
they were very focused. And we had this discussion, and one of the individuals, they were both women, and they got along great outside of work and at work. And one got very emotional and started to cry, and I could tell she was mad, and I asked her, I said, what's, well, I handed her a tissue, but I said, what's wrong? And she said, you always do the right thing. And I said, no, I don't. I make mistakes. She says, no, but you always do the right thing. And I'm upset with myself because you're absolutely correct. We should have been thinking of the whole thing and not just what each of us were arguing about. And she says, and I'm upset y- because you do such a great job at being that stability, that stable person who always acts the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think leaders struggle with that. And I think leaders struggle with empathy and compassion. I think all of these pillars are challenging for people
Sure.
because you don't, in business school, you learn about finances.
Mm-hmm.
You don't learn about how to deal with people with compassion or empathy. I mean, they now teach compassion to medical doctors in medical school, but in business school, they don't.
Sure. Yep.
And so being stable is very important.
I think the way you are putting this terminology, like stable, normally when we hear the word stability, it is about, you know, being stable with your job, being stable with your family, being stable with your relationship. But the angle or the perspective that you are bringing, which is stable with your behavior, irrespective of the person, irrespective of the environment or whatever the external forces are. And one of the challenge that I have seen and observed, Jim, is most of the leaders, they have a very different approach or an attitude when they are having a conversation with a high performer. when they are having a conversation with someone who is a revenue generator versus someone who is part of the back office, someone who is not so great performer. And I think the message that I want to pass on is it is not their fault that they are in the back office or they are in a revenue generating role. Each and every role is so important in running a business. It's not that revenue generation is, and people argue that, okay, well, if you don't have a revenue, we will not have those people. Yes, I understand. But it is something like, how your body function. Your body needs everything,
Correct.
the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands, the limbs, and the heart, everything. It's not just one can work. But point I'm making here is that every person in the team is important. Whether they're a revenue generator or they're a back office, everyone is important. And you as leader, if you are consistent, stable in your behavior, that could be a game changer. So thank you for bringing that aspect, Jim.
So, you sparked a thought in my mind of
Mhm.
something that I did. So the same company, while I worked there, I noticed that the, there was a woman whose name was Kathy who used to come and clean out the kitchen
Mhm.
and start the dishwasher and take out the garbage twice a day.
Mm.
I always said hello to Kathy, always asked her how her day was, but I noticed nobody on the floor ever talked to Kathy. So one day I sent out an email and I said, the first person who can come and tell me the name of the person who picks up after all of our dirty dishes are in the sink and takes out our trash and tells me her name, I will give a $50 Starbucks gift card to. And I walked outside of my office and I watched. And all of a sudden, heads started to pop up out of cubicles like popcorn, and everybody started looking around. Kathy entered the floor, and I should have told her what I did because what happened next scared the bejeebies out of her. But all of a sudden, 20 people ran to her and, "What's your name? What's your name?" And I mean, and anyway, so it scared her, and her boss called me later and said she was down here shaking. She was, she thought she was gonna get attacked, and I felt terrible, but I told them what I was trying to explain to the team is, Kathy's part of this team. There's no reason for you not to say hello to her and have a relationship with her. So, but that exercise did something.
Mm.
Once they knew Kathy's name, they kept the kitchen cleaner.
Mm.
They put their own dishes in the dishwasher. They didn't leave lunch trash on the counter. They put it in the can
Mm.
because they now knew Kathy was part of the team because they knew her name and they helped her with her job.
Mm.
Never expected that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so kind of you in making sure in being inclusive. Today, companies are talking about inclusivity. They are talking about involvement of everyone, but unfortunately, they're all on their mission statement or probably the policies. The actual execution, the inclusion is in what you just did. You just demonstrated that how you include people. For example, you when you are taking out names of performers in a your uh, keynote meeting or probably your client meeting, you only take names of those people who are your favorites. You only take names of those people who are coming from your office versus everyone who is supposed to be whose name should be taken in that meeting. So yes, I agree with you that if you really want to have that inclusive culture, you as a leader, you need to demonstrate that. You
Correct.
need to be the one who is sharing with people what inclusivity means. So thank you for demonstrating that. And before we move to a rapid fire round, I know I need to be mindful of your time, Jim. The sixth pillar.
Humor.
Mm.
So I, this one always, people always laugh and question why humor.
Hmm.
And humor is not being a comedian at the water cooler.
Mm.
I use humor to kick off a meeting. I use humor to redirect a discussion.
Hmm.
I use humor to diffuse a tense situation. And we live in a time where everybody is hypersensitive.
Yeah.
So my humor is not making fun of somebody's heritage or where they grew up or anything about them. It's usually self-deprecating humor of something that I did that I can laugh at now that maybe wasn't funny at the time, but people will understand. And it does two things. It accomplishes the goal, but by showing that you can make fun of yourself to your employees humanizes you.
Mm,
And they can say, "Hey, he's not only approachable, but you could have a fun chat with him."
mm,
And, I don't wanna be considered the leader who doesn't communicate. I don't wanna be the leader who just has his door closed. I don't wanna be the leader that, you know, doesn't tell everybody with transparency the things that are going on. And I have found that humor is a way to deliver a lot of those things. And I
absolutely.
think back, and the one person I think of who used it the most and it united this country was Ronald Reagan.
Mm,
He used it at the beginning of every speech he ever gave.
mm,
And he was able in difficult times to bring both sides of the aisle together better than any other president I've seen since.
mm.
And so to me, humor has a place here because work is hard. We're all stressed. A little bit of humor helps take the edge off.
Sure. All right. So thank you, Jim, for sharing these 6 pillars of effective leadership. We really appreciate the insight on the book. I know it's already on Amazon and it's becoming a bestseller. Would encourage really listeners as well as people who are watching us on YouTube to really check out this book. Um, Before we move on to our rapid fire, one final question for you, Jim. If our listeners, leaders, if they are excited to with your the process, they are intrigued with your philosophy on how to develop leaders. If they want to engage with you or work with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Best way is either LinkedIn or my website.
Mm,
And I'm sure you'll put both of them in your show notes.
yes.
And I will be actually launching shortly a coaching program
Mm,
that will come with mentoring because I'm a big believer in mentoring. So there's more to come. There's a newsletter I hope to launch shortly as well. But that's the best way to connect with me.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And now let's move to our next rapid fire round where 5 questions will be coming to you, Jim. And our listeners would be more interested in knowing the personal side of your leadership. Okay.
Okay.
The first one, a quotation you live by.
The quotation I live by would be um, operating, live my life with unquestionable integrity.
Okay. Uh, Indoors or outdoors for your ideal leadership retreat?
Outdoors.
Good. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
So it's funny. I'm both.
Okay.
I am an early morning person, and then I usually get a second wind at about 8 o'clock at night. um, but I am really a morning person.
Okay. What's one leadership skill you wish someone would have taught you earlier?
Empathy and compassion,
Okay.
because they are hard. I'm not gonna it's hard to show empathy, it's hard to show compassion, but if you have integrity, your people will believe you when you show that.
Absolutely. Final one. If your career were a Netflix series, what would be the title of season one be?
Title of season 1 would be season 1, How to be how to be a better leader, how to be a better leader in 5 easy steps.
Okay. All right. Check out probably next 2 to 3 years. You never know. This would be Netflix series. How to be a better leader in 5 easy steps. Thank you, Jim, for being uh, so intuitive about the process of that you share with your clients. To share with us about your book. and wishing you a lot of success, wishing you the best for your book. Before I again let you go, I want to share my learnings from the show. And listeners and people watching us on YouTube, now this is your time to put in comments what is has been your biggest takeaway. And as you are thinking to write, I think Jim has something to offer. Jim, if our people are putting in comments about their learning from the show, what surprise or what gift you have for them?
So the first 3 or 5 people that make a comment on this episode will get an autographed copy of my book free of charge that I will sign and mail to them. Now, don't put your address in your comments, just your name. We will reach out to you to get your address so that we can send you the book. But yes, so the first 5 people who make a comment will get a copy of the book.
Wow, that's a good treat. That's a good motivation as well for you to put in comments. But I'm sure the way the episode has been, there are multiple golden nuggets that have been dropped by Jim. For me, the number one itself was that leaders aren't born, they are developed. That's the thought process. Don't think that if you're not coming from a business background, not coming from a leader's family, you cannot be a leader. So, strict no, no, leaders can be developed. Number two is the most critical pillar, according to Jim, from the book is integrity. And what I liked about the question that Jim shared that every leader should be asking while going to bed, which is, did I do anything today for my self interest or for my benefit at the expense of others? Such a great question to ask and really tells us whether we are being true to ourselves, whether we are being true to our company, our organization, our country, our family. Very, very important. Uh, Next is the rest five pillars, according to his book, is compassion, empathy, stability, focus, and humor. So that has been the six pillars of leadership, according to Jim Carlough. Ladies and gentlemen, please put in the comments to get the autographed copy of Six Pillars to Effective Leadership. Thank you, Jim, one more time, and really appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.